Peace, love, light, and healing. Peace, love, light, and healing. Peace to the gods, peace to the earth. My name is Dr. Yokai Rafi Elohim. Everybody know me as Yahki Awaken, and I want to welcome y'all to Dr. Yahki Health and Human Development Center and School, where we teach everything about anatomy, physiology, microbiology, herb, plant science, botanical medicine, anything you can think of, we discuss and we teach in this school. Today I want to speak about neurological decline, brain diseases. The first one I want to talk about is dementia. Dementia is just a term, it's an umbrella word, and basically it's to explain cognitive functions and the way it declines. It's literally the declining of your neurological functionality. And what I mean by that is when you stop thinking correctly, you got problems thinking, you got problems with memory, you have problems with problem solving, you got problems with your everyday life. In fact, all of these things end up messing with your everyday life or interfering with your everyday life. So when you start looking at things like dementia, dementia is an umbrella word, but it literally covers everything that's under a cognitive decline. The first one that they have put under this umbrella is called Alzheimer's disease. The second one that they put under it is called vascular dementia. The third one is called Lewy body dementia. Then you have a fourth one, which is called frontal temporal dementia. So we're going to go through all of these different terminologies. We're going to break them all down. We're going to show the anatomy. We're going to pull out the cadavers. Y'all going to meet me in my microbiology room. Y'all going to meet me in my botanical plant science room, and we're going to get to it. The organs and glands and tissues and systems that's involved with dementia, of course, is going to be your neurological tissues, neurons. So this is the entire brain. Also the spinal cord and dealing with spinal fluid, the lymphatic tissues, lymphatic vessels, the kidneys, the adrenals. When you start looking at what they coin and call disease, you will see that from a holistic perspective, when you get these diseases, every different functionality of every major tissue, of every major organ is compromised in some type of way, which brings on this manifestation of disease. But if we're particularly talking about dementia and we're speaking about Alzheimer's disease, the first thing we have to look at is the pancreas, the nervous system, the lymphatic system, the cerebral spinal fluid inside of the spinal column, and then last but not least, which is the major elephant in the room, which will be your neurological tissues, or what we call the brain. So when it comes to Alzheimer's disease, the first thing they always mention is amyloid beta plaque protein buildup, or what you will call tau protein buildup as well. When you look at amyloid, amyloid is a protein. When amyloid starts being misfolded inside of the vessels or inside of neuron tissues, it becomes tangled up and it causes all types of blockages and congestions in the brain. And what happens is when these blockages and this congestion come inside of these neurological pathways, now you no longer can actually get oxygen, you can no longer get nutrients and everything you need, which is glucose, to the brain to feed the brain, for the brain can actually function how it's supposed to. So what I'm going to do is we're going to pull down our cadaver, we're going to go through here, and we're going to go all the way down to the brain. So this is the brain right here. The brain is made up of so many cells and tissues. In fact, if you look at the brain only weighs 2% of your body weight, but it requires 20% of your total body energy. Let me say that again. The brain only weighs 2% of your total body weight, but it requires 20% of all of your body's energy. So that means most of your mitochondria is processed here. That means most of your glucose is processed here. And that means most of what you'll call your ketones is processed here too. The brain requires a lot of energy. And the reason why the brain requires a lot of energy is because this is how you think. This is how you connect and communicate with others. This is how you remember things. And this is how you literally project yourself into your everyday reality in life. So you have these proteins inside of the brain. One of the proteins is called beta amyloid protein. When it's actually unfolded and it's stuck in this placed in the right way, the body moves and it can get melanin neurotransmitters throughout the body pretty good. Same thing with tau protein. But when these proteins start folding up, they collapse on top of each other and then they start collecting all types of metabolic waste. And this is where the issue come in. I teach my students all the time that there's only two things that fuel diseases. The first one is toxicity. The other one is deficiency. Well, when you look at toxicity, the only way the body can become toxic if it's congested. This congestion then brings on a blockage, and now deficiency come in because you can't get oxygen, you can't get all of the goodies and all of the nutrients and phytochemicals throughout the blood system to get to the brain and get to the cells, or keep those cells saturated with oxygen for you can function throughout the day. So when you get into amyloid plaque buildup, when it comes to Alzheimer's disease or when it comes to dementia, we have to talk about why you start forgetting your memory, why you stop functioning in your cognitive motility in the correct way, and why you stop communicating like you used to. We have to talk about something called the hippocampus. Inside the hippocampus is where most of your memories are regulated from, or should I say stored at. Memory is stored throughout the body. Most of your actual memory is stored and regulated through the hippocampus. Inside this hippocampus, you have a bunch of neurons. This is a neuron cadaver right here, and I really want to focus on the dendrites. So if you look at a neuron, neurons connect with more neurons and they share information by way of synapses, right? You have these little dendrite fingers that stick out to share information. And a part of this thing is when they share information, they actually share and they move around melanin neurotransmitters. This helps you with dopamine. It helps you feel happy. It helps you with serotonin. It makes you feel serious. It helps you with understanding life, understanding yourself, regulating memories, just giving away all information. It's an information highway by electrical potential. And it's literally called the electrical potential in the brain when these melanin neurotransmitters are shared through dendrites by way of synapses to each different neuron. What happened is when you start dealing with Alzheimer's or dementia, these dendrites become corroded. They go through oxidative stress and then they start to break down. And the reason why they break down is because amyloid plaque protein buildup. Amyloid is not bad. Amyloid is a protein, and this protein helps actually regulate things and keep things in check inside of the actual brain and inside of the neurological tissues. What happens is when it's time for the amyloid plaque to break down, it don't break down, and what happens is beta amyloid stay inside, and beta amyloid is this sticky substance that starts sticking on the communication fingers, or what I call dendrites of the neurons, and then the sticky substance glycate and break down and becomes an acid, and it starts chewing on the tissues, and then it solidifies, and then more amyloid beta plaque protein buildup start clunking against itself, creating this accumulation. And now all of these dendrites that used to communicate all of these melanin transmitters and communication can no longer do it because they don't have that varying potential to cross the cellular membrane because something is actually blocking it. And that blockage will be tau protein and amyloid plaque protein buildup. The whole question you should be asking yourself, why can't it unblock itself? And it goes back to what we was talking about. The glymphatic system, which is the sewage system of the body, is backed up. And the glymphatic system is backed up lymphatically. So until you cleanse or drain or open up the lymphatic system, then you're going to continue to pressurize and back up glymphatically and cervically and in your maxillary cavities and behind your sinus cavities and your sphenoid cavities. And then it goes into the brain. It blocks the cerebrospinal fluid. It starts corroding these areas and it cuts off all communication. So now if you need communication of these synapses to talk and to communicate or to remember or to literally function in your everyday life, it all ceased to exist. And it gets deeper because memory is just the first sign. Forgetting your keys and stuff like that is the first sign. Forgetting how to communicate and talk is the first sign. The last sign is the body cells stop communicating with each other. So what causes tau buildup? What causes amyloid plaque or beta amyloid plaque buildup? Why these things cannot break down, make it to the kidneys, to get out the kidneys, and then you process them or detox them out through what you will call detoxification pathways, or what we are called the kidneys or the nephrons, to open up and to flush all these toxins out. It's the great lymphatic system. So the body is made of 150 trillion cells. I tell y'all this all the time. Each cell have to eat like you. Each cell have to poop like you. Each cell breathes like you. So the body cells are called organelles and your cells are called organs. So just like you have a respiratory system, the cells have a respiratory system. Just like you have a digestive system, the cells have a digestive system. Just like you have reproductive organs, the cells have reproductive organelles called the ribosome. Just how you have what you would call bladders. The cells have bladders called vesicles that holds on to certain type of fluids. So when you eat, in the macro sense of things, you eat food, then it comes out the tailpipe or it goes through your digestional intestines and it comes out your anus into the toilet. The thing about it is when your cells eat on a micro level, all of the metabolic toxic waste end up on top of the cells. And the great lymphatic system is what picks up all of these things. The whole world is going crazy about my 3 bitters. The 3 bitters cleanse the lymphatic system. It cleanses the nervous system. It cleanses the blood. It cleanses the digestive system. These 3 bitters is amazing. It is our #1 seller. It is an initial cleanse. If you're not looking to do a big, very big, deep, extensive cleanse and detoxification, this is a no-brainer. You can do this while you're traveling. You can do this in your everyday life. You can do this and still go to work. So, you know, the 3 bitters are our #1 seller. These things have been astringent and oxygenating and rebuilding cells for as long as I know. If you just want to cleanse out your gut, cleanse out your lymphatic system, and do a quick parasitic flush, the 3 bitters. Go into the website, www.yahkiawaken.com. Click on the actual category T's and get the 3 bitters. I promise you these will not fail you. So the blood is what feeds the cells all of the phytonutrients. The blood is what feeds the cells all of the oxygen. The blood is what feeds the cells nitric oxide, which causes vasodilation. So the blood feeds the cells of the body. Then you have something called the nervous system. The nervous system communicates and commands the cells of the body and tells them what to do. And last but not least, you have something called the great lymphatic system. The lymphatic system is actually what cleanses all the metabolic waste, all the unusable parts out of the body, takes it to the kidneys. The kidneys then process it out by way of urea. This turns into urination and then you get rid of it in the toilet that way. So if you look on the screen here, what we're looking at is the great lymphatic system. The lymphatic system is the sewage system of the actual body. But then you have something called the glymphatic system, which is what cleanses the brain. The glymphatic system actually cleanses the brain by way of lymphatic vessels. So you have a fluid inside of the spinal cord that's connected to the actual lymphatic system. When you go to sleep at night and you get into deep delta wave sleep in between the hours of 2 a.m. to 4 a.m., the brain cells shrink and it allows these vesicles or these big cavity walls to open up. And what happens is lymphatic fluid, or what you will call cerebral spinal fluid, washes and rinses through each ventricle, getting all of the amyloid plaque buildup out, getting any type of heavy metal toxicity out, getting any type of pinworms or toxoplasma gondii out. And what it does is it flushes itself back down into the cerebral spinal fluid and then dumps it into capillaries, and then it take it all the way down into the kidneys. And then when you wake up in the rising, you have this urge to urinate and defecate. So you go to the toilet and you get rid of all of that metabolic waste. So my question is, if all disease is fueled by toxicity and deficiency, and we know that toxicity means that you have been intoxicated, and you're intoxicated because you're congested, and once you be congested, this congestion causes buildup or accumulation. So now you cannot get none of those goodies or those phytonutrients to the brain. That means the lymphatic system is backed up. Now you got to ask yourself, what causes the lymphatic system to be backed up? So we got to speak about the lymphatic system being backed up, and we're going to go through the anatomy and physiology of these things. But first, we got to get it all down. Toxicity. Toxicity can come from your environment. Your environment can have chemtrails, which we breathe in every day. Heavy metals and microplastics in our foods, in our silverware, in our Tupperware. Heavy metals and microplastics in our textiles of our clothing, the color, the dye, the azo dye in our clothing. Polyester is actually made from petroleum oil and microplastics. This is 100% true fact. There's only one person in this world today that can literally get on the stand and testify and say that they don't have 0 microplastics inside of their semen. Every other male on the planet, even the babies that's still inside of their mother's womb, wounds have microplastics inside their reproductive system right now, acting like what you would call estrogen-like or hormone-like molecules, disrupting their whole entire endocrine system that brings on so-called diseases like we're talking about today. So when you look at the environment, we got contaminated fluoride and chlorinated water. We got the clothes are killing us. Our bed sheets is killing us. Our pillowcases is killing us. We're living in a very, very toxic world. So when you're bringing these things in, you have this detoxification pathway to get them out. And this detoxification pathway is called the actual lymphatic system. But if the kidneys is not working, and if the skin is not working because the thyroid is down, because it's messing with your hormones, and the thyroid is what controls the hormones, then what happens is toxicity comes in and brings on deficiency. The deficiency, if you don't correct it, brings on what you will call congestion. Congestion and accumulation brings on adaptation. Adaptation then brings on what you will call mutation, and this mutation is what you will call these so-called diseases. What we're looking at on the screen is the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system is of the body, but then you have something called the glymphatic system, which is on the cervical area up to the actual brain. So what I would do is I'll go down if I can show you what I'm talking about. So if you look at Hans, from his neck up is the glymphatic system. That is the actual sewage system, or what cleanses the brain on down into the cervical area. Then from the cervical area, chest plate on down, is the lymphatic system. Well, in order to cleanse the glymphatic system, or to cleanse the head, because all dementia or Alzheimer's or Lewy body dementia or frontal temporal dementia is nothing but the brain being congested, and it's causing the amyloid plaque protein to build up and accumulate, and it's causing tau protein to build up and accumulate because you're not able to drain, whether it be through high blood sugar, whether it be through high blood pressure, whether it be through the lack of nitric oxide, whether it be through toxicity or deficiency. All of it drives this. So how can we cleanse the actual brain, open up the brain channel detoxification pathways, for we can start dumping all of that toxin down into the actual lymphatic system and getting it out of the glymphatic system? In order to understand that, you got to see what the lymphatic system look like. So this is the lymphatic system. We notice that the brain is right here. If you actually look at the brain, remember we talked about that you have cerebral spinal fluid that cleanses out the brain every night between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. when you're in deep delta wave sleeping. You have to be in deep delta wave sleeping, otherwise you will not go into a stage of autophagy. And if you cannot go into a stage of autophagy, the body will not detox. Once it starts detoxing, all of that fluid gets in the ventricle, cerebral spinal fluid, then the fluid starts draining itself into lymph capillaries. These capillaries then go to what you will call lymph nodes. All of these different green little peed and pod-like structures are called lymph nodes. A lymph node is full of what you'll call macrophages and bacteria. And the sole purpose of these is they act like a septic tank. Whenever each point goes into them, they get checked. And then when they get checked, these are checkpoints. And when they get checked, what they do is they sense anything that's wrong to the body, they disintegrate it and break it down to macromolecules. And then these macros go to micromolecules, and these micromolecules are able to go into more lymph vessels, and then it travels and it makes its way to the kidneys where you can process it out when you urinate. All right. So if the lymphatic system is not moving, then it builds up congestion. When you build up congestion in the lymphatic area, then automatically you start backing up pressure-wise upwards. Now you start backing up in the cranial area, what we call the brain, and then you start getting things like dementia, brain fog, memory loss, communication issues. You forget your words while they're coming out your mouth. You forgetting your keys. You forget where your car at. You start forgetting who you are. You forget who your children are. You start forgetting everything around you, and you lose that communication skill, and your memory and your cognitive function just decline. And that's because your brain is congested with all of these proteins, all of these heavy metals, all these environmental pollutants, and you have no way to detox them out because your detoxification pathways is congested and is backed up. And the reason why it's backed up, because you haven't cleansed the lymphatic system. Now I'm going to show you how to properly cleanse the lymphatic system. Alzheimer's was actually called diabetes 3. Why is it called diabetes 3? That's because the body has become very insulin resistant. The pancreas have worn itself out. Now you cannot control your blood sugar, and blood sugar, or what you'll call glucose accumulation when it stays in the blood, known to go through something called glycation. This glycation then blocks itself out because it's full of crystals. It blocks itself up and congests itself or accumulate inside the blood vessels, and it literally stops all the nutrients from making it into the brain, giving you the very symptoms that I was just talking about earlier. So when you look at the pancreas, which is what we're going to look at, we see it's a liver right here. You see the greater omentum. You see the spleen on the side when it comes to right here. You also see the gallbladder hanging up under the liver. But I want to turn this thing around. When we turn this thing around, matter of fact, let's do it just like this. Let's start going deeper into it. Now here goes the pancreas. I'm going to blow the pancreas up for you. The pancreas is one of the most important glands or endocrine glands inside of the body. Again, the pancreas is what deals with your blood sugar. Inside the pancreas, you have something called the islets of Langerhans. Inside the islets of Langerhans, you have alpha cells. The alpha cells produces glucagon, which is a hormone that basically tells the blood to raise its blood sugar or its glucose inside of the blood vessels. Then you have something called beta cells. The beta cells produces insulin. Insulin is what acts as a key mechanism to unlock the actual cellular membrane to allow glucose sugar inside the cell to be burnt off as ATP, adenosine triphosphate, and that's where you get all of your energy and vitality from. Then you have something called the delta cells. The delta cells deal with a hormone called somatostatin, which is producers of beta and of alpha and beta cells, and it's also a growth hormone inside of it. When the pancreas get worn out, because you never give the pancreas a rest, because you're constantly eating, and whenever you eat anything, it raises the blood sugar, and whenever you raises your blood sugar, your glycemic load, the beta cells have to produce insulin to allow that sugar inside the cells. So if you never have a break, or you never go on a fast, or you never eat according to your circadian rhythm, you're constantly working the pancreas. Alpha cells, beta cells, delta cells, alpha cells, beta cells, delta cells, alpha cells, beta cells, delta cells. The pancreas then get tired and it get worn out. When it get worn out, it starts to die out, or it stops working. When it stops working, a regenerative process happens. So now you're going through a regenerative process and then what you would call a death process. This causes inflammation inside the pancreas. Those inflamed tissues then turn into fibrosis. Now you have scarring and fiber tissues on the pancreas, which cause the pancreas to shut down about 60 to 70%. So now you cannot produce any of these enzymic reactions to help you break down proteins. Now you can't produce any of these enzymic reactions to help you break down your food. And also you can't produce what you'll call sodium bicarbonate to keep the body buffering out acids. So now you start building up all of these acids in the tissues, which burns the cells and burns the tissues. And you got all this food that cannot be broken down. This food begins to ferment. This ferment and turn into all types of alcohol, which is very, very bad for the actual system. And last but not least, it keeps blood sugar high inside of the bloodstream. Now, since the blood sugar is high inside the bloodstream, you go through something called glycation. And when you glycate the cells, you start messing up the endothelial layer of the arteries and of the blood vessels. So now the blood vessels start getting corroded and it starts vasoconstricting. It closes up and it hardens off and it solidifies. This keeps a lot of your phytonutrients and a lot of the actual oxygen and chemicals and all the nutrients you need from going to the brain and feeding the hippocampus tissues and feeding the neurons. Now the neurons stop receiving all of the nutrients and oxygen it needs, and they go through a state of deficiency and toxicity because the amyloid plaque and the tau build up, and boom, you get all the symptomologies of what you'll call dementia or Alzheimer's disease. So when the pancreas completely shut down, you stop producing pancreatic enzymes to break down your food. So now you're not getting no phytonutrients out of the food. Deficiency. The food then sits inside of the digestive system and breaks down and turns into yeast and fungus and mold. Toxicity. Not only that, since the blood sugar is just sitting inside of the actual vessels, you go through something called glycation, glycosylation. Glycation messes up the endothelial layer of the actual blood cells. So now the blood cells or the blood vessels are starting to corrode and go through oxidation. When that happens, a hardening happens because calcium is released by a hormone called calcitonin by way of the thyroid. So now you're getting this hardening of the arteries. When the arteries become hard, they vasoconstrict. So now since they vasoconstrict, constrict, nothing can get actually through the actual vessels or arteries to go to the brain. And then the brain starts to be deprived of oxygen. The brain starts to be deprived of phytonutrients. The brain starts to be deprived of electrolytes, of ketones, and everything else. And now you're starting to see the symptoms where you can't communicate, where you start to forget, and you just can't go through your everyday life because you start forgetting who you are, and you start forgetting those who are around you, and even things and objects around you.
Peace, love, light, healer, peace, love, light, healer, peace to the gods, peace to the earths. Hey, what I'm holding in my hand is a Bible, the Bible of health. It's called Healing the Illusion We Call Disease, written by me. The idea was deep. I've been working on this book for the last 6-7 years. It took me 4 years to actually put it together. It is now available on YahkiAwaken.com. So make sure you click the link. Make sure you get the book. We completely sold out of it. We sold over 10,000 units the first couple of days. So grab this book. It'll come to your doorstep. It's really called the Bible of Health for a reason. Anything you need to know about spirituality, anything you need to know about health, or what you will call disease, is in this book. So don't miss it. It's amazing. It's changing the world, and it definitely will change you. So grab the book, Healing the Illusion We Call Disease, the Bible of Health.
So this is why it's important to keep the pancreas clean. And this is why it's very, very important to keep the lymphatic system clean, because we must have a sewage system to clean these things in the body. So if you look at the lymphatic system is a pressurized system. The only way to truly move this system is by way of movement. Literally, this can be jumping jacks. This can be walking. This can be getting on a trampoline. I have a beautiful machine here at the school where you can stand on. It's called a vibration plate, where it shoots these vibrations and these sonic waves into the body to move your muscles, to get the lymphatic system moving. Skin brushing is very, very amazing, and getting in the sauna. The sauna is amazing as well. And I'm going to take you to the sauna, but the sauna is amazing as well because you can get in there and you can sweat. So in order to move the glymphatic system, you have to first move and uncongest the lymphatic system. And the way you do that first is you look where most of the lymph nodes at. As we can see, 95% of all lymph nodes is in the gut, the gut associated lymphatic tissues. Now we have to talk about the digestive system, or what you would call the GOAT, the gut associated lymphatic tissues. In order to cleanse the glymphatic system, you have to cleanse the lymphatic system. 95% of your lymphatic tissues or associated tissues are in fact inside of the actual gut. Now, you have to cleanse the gut out. The best way to cleanse this gut out is by way of herbs. We're going to talk about that in herbal therapy room, but we have to know the process. We have to cleanse out the jejunum, the ileum, the transverse colon, the cecum, the sigmoid colon, down to the rectum to the anus. The best way to do this is by hydration and going on a solid food vacation. And I suggest you do the geogenetic therapeutic juice at least 21 days just to get that initial plaque up out of your system. You have to cleanse the gut. If you can cleanse the gut and you can unclog those lymph nodes and unclog the lymph capillaries and unclog those actual lymph vessels, then now you can allow all of the drainage to start draining and flowing down, but you can get rid of it by way of your urinary tract and by way of your actual digestive tract. So how do you move the GOAT? Deep diaphragmatic breathing. Move the diaphragmatic muscle. It will move one of the biggest lymph nodes in the gut called the cisterna chyli. This will help unblock this area. Another one would be going on a solid food vacation. Whether you do the geogenetic juice. I created something called the geogenetic juice. I'll put a link in the description. You can do that for 21 days, or you can do a all water fast and put salt in it just to start moving and getting all of that solid food out of the intestinal tract, because I'm pretty sure you have all types of intestinal plaque built up inside the arteries walls. What's inside of there is probably mold. It's probably fermentation of yeast and fungi, Candida albicans. All of these things contribute to the blocking of the lymph nodes, of the lymphatic fluid and movement inside of this actual system. And I already told you about the vibrational plates. I already told you about movement. Movement is what moves the lymphatic system. Jumping jacks, swimming, aerobic exercises. All of this move the lymph, but you have to make sure you get up to at least 4 bowel movements today to start emptying out the jejunum, start emptying out the cecum, start emptying out the large intestines, the transverse colon, the sigmoid colon, moving all of this waste out. That way those vessels can stop being so constricted. Then you have something that can start moving and pushing all the lymph into the kidneys, for the nephrons of the kidneys can actually process them out. Once you move all of the congestion from the gut, lymph nodes, and lymphatic vessels and capillaries. Now you get this draining effect in the brain, in the cervical area, what you would call the maxillary cavities or the maxillary nodes, the ceph lymph nodes, the submandibular lymph nodes, the submental lymph nodes, the cervical, the axillary lymph nodes. Now they can all drain properly because it's not backed up from that original congestion which started in the actual gut. We got to talk about the kidneys. The kidneys are so important because it's the last point of relief when we're talking about metabolic waste and opening up detoxification pathways. The kidneys actually filtrate out all of your metabolic waste from your brain all the way down to your toes. Your whole entire body breaks down this waste, go through lymph vessels, go through lymph nodes, get disintegrated and broken down through a stage of autophagy. It ends up in the kidneys by way of the adrenal glands. The adrenal glands act as this plug mechanism, this power source that turns these amazing filtration biological tissues on. And then you get rid of all of that metabolic waste. You get rid of all of the amyloid plaque and tau protein built up in fragments, and you urinate it out when you wake up in the horizon or throughout the day if you drink enough water. And it shows you that hydration is very, very key to keeping yourself from getting dementia and any of these neurological decline diseases. You have 3 kidneys. The first major kidney is your skin. First major kidney. You get this by the sauna, sweating, turning on the basal temperature of the thyroid to get that body to perspire. Also by heating up the temperature of the thyroid, getting the body into about 101 to 103 degrees Fahrenheit. Make sure that you got somebody watching you. You have somebody with a medical background when you start giving yourself these inducing fevers, but you can't perspire, you can't sweat to be around and just watch you and to keep checking your levels because it can get dangerous. But perspiring helps you get rid of heavy metals and help you get rid of lymphatic waste by way of the skin. Remember that I told you the skin stands for salt. Skin associated lymphatic tissues. Now the skin is the third kidney because it does process out metabolic waste like nephrons. Now if we go through and we start dissecting this cadaver, let's go to the actual kidneys. So we talked about the large kidney, which is the skin. Now we're talking about the 2 kidneys that are right here. And if you look at these kidneys, notice what's on the top of these kidneys. If I turn them around, you have adrenal glands. And the adrenal glands act as the actual power source to plug in the filtration system, and the actual filtration system itself is the kidneys. Inside these kidneys, you have 2 million nephrons, and these nephrons literally take all the metabolic waste, take all of the salt and all of the good stuff you need and put it back into the bloodstream, but all the bad things you need, take it through these tubes. And these tubes are called ureters. It takes it to the ureters all the way down. And when it gets down here, it ends up in the actual urinary bladder. From the urinary bladder, it goes through the urethra and then through the urethra into the actual toilet. And that's how you get rid of the metabolic waste. I'm going to show you herbs that'll turn on the kidneys and turn on the adrenals. So we're in the Herbal room at Dr. Yahki's Health and Human Development Center, and we're talking about dementia, and we're talking about any type of neurological decline, or when your cognitive functioning goes down, and how to start getting yourself back. When we was in the anatomy room, we talked about cerebrospinal fluid and how cerebrospinal fluid act as this plasma inside the glymphatic system, and while you sleep, it cleanses and it washes the cells of the brain, how the cells of the brain literally shrink themselves at night. That way the fluid inside of the ventricles can open themselves up and wash against those cells to get all the amyloid plaque, tau proteins off of the cells, any metabolic waste, any heavy metals, any fragmented parasitics that have died and went through something called parasitic lysis, where they explode and put all of their DNA and RNA in your system. The cerebrospinal fluid literally help washes those things down, go down to the cervical area, then ends up in the glymphatic system. From the glymphatic system goes up to the lymphatic system, and then to the lymphatic system to the kidneys, and then you urinate it out. Ginkgo biloba is a beautiful, beautiful berry and leaf that both is potentially very strong. This increases cerebral circulation. And I love to do this in teas with the berries. I like to do it as a tea or as a capsule. But if you can do an 8-ounce tea at least once a day of ginkgo, it'll help you increase cerebral fluid circulation, but you can start washing those amyloid buildup beta plaque proteins and that tau protein from out of your neurological tissues and from out of the camp is while you sleep at night. So I say do 8 ounces. Do not add any sweeteners to it, and do this in a rise, and that way it can work throughout the body during the day. And then when you fall in line with the circadian rhythm and you go to sleep at night, you will get that initial detoxification, because this is increasing the circulation. Next thing is what you will call go-to cola. Go-to cola is an amazing leaf as well. And go-to cola is what you will call a neurological tonic when it comes to helping you stimulate and cleanses the brain, opening up circulation to the brain, bringing more oxygen to the brain, anti-oxidative to the brain. Go-to cola is your initial neurological tonic. So make sure that you do this. I'd rather you do these in 500 milligram capsules, because it's amazing for the brain, and you can take these twice a day. And we have to talk about dandelion root. Dandelion root is amazing because it cleanses the actual liver. Not only do it cleanse the liver, but it cleanses the pancreas as well. And we know when we talk about diabetes 3, or we talk about Alzheimer's disease or dementia, it's a pancreas issue. And we talked about all of that in the A&P anatomy room. So if you can do this in capsules and in tea at least once a day, this will help cleanse out the liver, help cleanse out the pancreas, and help get that pancreas back functioning properly and cleansing it. That way you can get rid of all of those inflammatory responses, and you can start regulating not only your blood sugar, but you can become insulin sensitive instead of insulin resistant. We're going to go over to the other side of the table. Now, remember we was talking about something that cleanses out the gut, or the gut associated lymphatic tissue. And I said in order to move the glymphatic system, which is the cleansing pathway or the detoxification pathway of the brain, you have to cleanse it into the actual lymphatic system. But most of your lymphatic vessels and lymph nodes, 95% of it, including your immune system, is in the gut. Castor sagrada bark is amazing for cleansing the gut. We do about 1,000 milligram capsules twice a day. And we also do a 4-ounce tonic, or what you will call potent tea, a day. This will put you on the toilet where you can defecate and get rid of all of those metabolic toxic waste buildup that's inside of the actual digestive system. That way, when you get rid of all of that digestive metabolic waste and all of that mucoid plaque built up that's inside the gut, now those lymph vessels can actually vasodilate again, and you can start moving that lymph and getting rid of all of that micro waste that's on the actual brain. So I love Castor sagrada. Another one is a great lymphatic mover, lymphatic strengthener, and lymphatic toner, and an amazing blood cleanser. Help you increase oxygenation to the brain throughout the body. The blood builds your iron up and also pulls what you will call copper from the liver. Red clover flower buds or red clover flower tops, even red clover leaf, but it's nothing like the actual flower itself. It's an amazing blood cleanser. It's amazing in antioxidative properties. It brings so much oxygen throughout the bloodstream and throughout the body. It gets it straight to the brain, and it's going to tone, it's going to pull, it's going to love, and it's going to tug and be very astringent in a gentle way on the lymphatic system. These are the herbs you need. You're talking about things that work. You're talking about things that help you think better, that help you remember more. These are the herbs you need to start adding to your daily diet. If you're suffering from diabetes 3, if you're suffering from Alzheimer's disease, if you're suffering from any type of neurological decline, or what we'll call dementia. Now, everybody want to know, what do you eat during your detoxification and during your regenerative stage to start making you feel better and see these symptoms go away? An all Edenic diet. I wouldn't eat nothing but fruits, vegetables, berries, melons, and herbs, some seeds. The things that I'll put high on my plate will actually be nuts and berries. And the reason I'm talking about berries, because berries is the highest in antioxidants on planets when it comes to fruit. They have something called anthocyanins in it that's very, very highly antioxidative towards the brain, and it will start the initial calming mechanism to the body to get rid of all of that inflammation. I will go to melons. Melon is anti-inflammatory, have a lot of polyphenols in it, got a lot of different neurological compounds in it that help promote neurological functioning. And then make sure that you're drinking about 45 to 50 ounces of spring water a day. Get clean spring water. Make sure it's in the glass bottle. Stay away from plastic. If you can't afford to get the glass bottles, make sure that the plastic bottles you get is BPA free. BPA free. At least 7 to 8 hours of sleep a day, family. That's what you need to regenerate neurological tissue. 7 to 8 hours in delta wave sleeping. That's how you go through neurological autophagy to start detoxing the brain and moving that glymphatic system and increasing cerebral fluid circulation. So fruits, berries, melons, vegetables, nuts, seeds, certain grains, and herbs with a water diet. And if you're going to do juices, do my geogenetic juice. That's what you need. This will heal you. This will make you whole. This will get rid of a lot of the symptomologies. And I need you to sweat. Get in the sauna at least 30 minutes every other day. 21 to 30 minutes. Make sure that you're in there above 170 degrees Fahrenheit. A traditional sauna where you use water, and then you can use infrared sauna towards the end. If you want your life back, if you want to get your memory back, if you want this so-called neurological disease to reverse and turn itself around, follow everything that I told you. With that being said, peace, love, light, and healing. Peace to the gods. Peace to the earth. Peace.
There are a bunch of people using my image, using my likeness, and using my face to sell their products. I only sell products at www.yahkiawaken.com. Don't trust social media. Don't trust anything. If it do not take you back to www.yahkiawaken.com, I can promise you it is not me. We're suing so many companies, but as soon as we get a page down, another one pop up. Also, I will never ever ask you for money or accept money if it's not the website. So it's not the I don't do WhatsApp. I'm not doing Telegram. I'm not doing Vimeo. I'm not doing any of those things. If it's not www.yahkiawaken.com, I can promise you that it is not me. It might look like me. They probably done clone my voice, but if it don't take you back to my website and my manufacturing company that operates through my website, then it's not me. And also, all of these fake social media pages, only trust the actual blue verified pages. And even then, if they ask you for money, don't buy from them.